Rain drizzled on the slick concrete as Judge Amanda Hale 42 stepped out of the courthouse. Known for her fierce intellect and unshakable presence in the courtroom, she was a symbol of justice in the city. But beneath the robe, she was a woman like any other one who never imagined that a short walk to her car would change everything. The alley shortcut she'd taken dozens of times before suddenly felt too quiet. Then came laughter, low, cruel adolescent. 3 young men stepped from the shadows, teenagers barely out of high school wearing smug expressions and holding beer cans. "Hey, look at this classy lady," one of them sneered, "out here all alone." Amanda's posture stiffened. "Step aside," she said firmly, her judge's tone slipping out by instinct. But they didn't move. One step forward, his eyes locked on her blouse. "Bet under that prim shirt, you're just as dirty as the rest." Before she could react, his hand grabbed her collar. In a single, violent tug, her shirt tore open. Buttons flying, the alley echoed with their laughter as she stumbled backward, clutching the torn fabric across her chest. One of them snapped a photo. She could have screamed. She could have fought back. But Amanda stared at them, memorizing faces. Every freckle, every scar, every arrogant smirk. "You've made a mistake you'll regret," she said quietly, her voice low and terrifyingly calm. The tallest one scoffed. "What are you gonna do? Call your lawyer boyfriend?" Amanda didn't flinch. Something like that. They disappeared into the night, drunk on power, unaware they had just assaulted one of the most respected criminal judges in the city. Amanda returned home in silence. She sat in the dark for hours, the ripped shirt still wrapped around her. She wasn't crying. She was calculating. By morning, their faces were burned into her mind. She wouldn't scream. She wouldn't post online. She would do what she did best, deliver justice, where it would hurt most. And when it came, they would wish they had never touched her. It didn't take long. 2 nights later, one of the boys, Mason Briggs, 19, cocky and entitled, was picked up by police after getting into a bar fight that left another man bleeding and unconscious. When officers checked surveillance footage, they found more than enough to charge him with aggravated assault. He was booked cuffed and scheduled for an arraignment the next morning in Superior Court. He was still laughing about it and boasting to other detainees about how he taught that guy a lesson. But when the courtroom doors opened and the judge's chair slowly turned, that smile evaporated like fog in sunlight. Amanda Hale entered in her robe, black and commanding chin held high. Her eyes found Mason immediately. His entire body froze. The color drained from his face. He leaned forward, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The same woman he had mocked, groped, and humiliated now sat above him, robed in power, backlit by the courtroom's towering windows, with the full weight of the law behind her. Amanda didn't blink. Her gavel hit the wood with a sharp crack. "Court is now in session," she said. "Defendant Mason Briggs." Mason's lawyer leaned over to whisper something, but Mason couldn't hear a thing. All he could feel was that growing, boiling dread crawling up his spine. "She looks familiar," he muttered under his breath. Amanda locked eyes with him for the briefest second. That look said everything. "I remember you. And now you'll remember me." The bailiff began reading the charges, but Mason didn't listen. He was already spiraling. His mind raced back to that alley, to the sound of ripping fabric, to Amanda's calm warning. This wasn't just bad luck. This was retribution. And it was only beginning. He trembled slightly in his seat as Amanda's voice rang through the courtroom, crisp and composed. "You are being charged with aggravated assault." "Mr. Briggs," she said, "do you understand the severity of that?" "Yes, Your Honor." Mason croaked, eyes lowered. Amanda paused, then added slowly, I have reviewed the preliminary evidence, and I recognize the defendant. The room went silent. Mason's attorney stammered, Your Honor, do you believe this presents a conflict of interest? Amanda smiled slightly. Not at all. I'll see this through to arraignment, then it will be passed to another judge. But for today, Mr. Briggs belongs to me. Mason looked as if he might vomit, and he hadn't even realized yet that the worst was still to come. The courtroom felt colder than usual. Or maybe it was just Mason's blood running ice cold in his veins. Every minute under Judge Amanda Hale's gaze stretched like a lifetime. He tried to compose himself to act indifferent, but his shaking hands betrayed him. He gripped the table to keep them still, eyes darting up only to meet hers. That calm stare, that unreadable face, the face he had mocked just days ago. Amanda's voice was smooth controlled. She read the charges with the same composure she always maintained. But her precision had never felt sharper. In addition to the assault charge, she announced new evidence has emerged that suggests the defendant may be involved in another unrelated incident currently under review by the district attorney's office. Mason's head snapped up. What he blurted, panic rising. Amanda raised one brow. Silence, Mr. Briggs. You will have your chance to speak, the courtroom murmured. His attorney leaned toward him, whispering furiously, Did you do something else? What the hell is she talking about? Mason shook his head. I don't know. But he did. Somewhere inside he knew. That alley, that night, that photo they took, the torn blouse. They had laughed, posted something maybe someone recognized her. Amanda reached for the folder on her bench and opened it slowly. She didn't need to say anything more yet. The presence of that folder was enough to send Mason's pulse racing. As if summoned by fate, the courtroom door opened and a second officer stepped in, escorting two more boys in cuffs, Brent and Kyle. The other two from the alley. They were disheveled and stunned, not nearly as cocky as they'd been on the night they assaulted her. Brent caught sight of Amanda on the bench and stopped dead in his tracks. No way, he whispered. Kyle just muttered, The bailiff silenced them and led them to the front. Amanda watched, face unreadable. Only her eyes told the story, precise, piercing, steady. Justice wasn't just blind. Sometimes it waited. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Everyone knew something electric was happening, something they couldn't quite name. Mason's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, again, I must raise a concern. This case clearly presents Amanda held up her hand. Your objection is noted. This hearing is not to determine guilt, only to determine whether the defendants may be released on bail. We are still within procedure. Then she turned to the officers. Do you have the preliminary reports? Yes, Your Honor. We have the security footage and the original victim's official complaint filed yesterday. Amanda took the USB drive, without a word, and inserted it into the courtroom monitor system. The screen behind her lit up. A paused video showed an alley. A woman in heels, walking alone. Her heels, gasps rippled through the court. She didn't play the video. She didn't need to. Just the freeze frame, the evidence was enough. Amanda spoke quietly. This court recognizes the defendants and will proceed under full awareness of the circumstances. Bail is denied. A sharp bang of the gavel echoed like a gunshot. 3 boys sat frozen in their seats, no longer bold, no longer laughing. And for the first time in their short, arrogant lives, They felt something deeper than fear. They felt consequences. They weren't just trembling, they were crumbling. The courtroom was now a chamber of reckoning. Every person present, from the press in the back row to the attorneys seated in silence, could sense they were witnessing something rare: justice with a pulse. It beat in Judge Amanda Hale's chest, steady and unflinching. She didn't look at the boys anymore. She looked through them. Amanda turned to the prosecution. "Please present the evidence package submitted this morning." The assistant district attorney stood clearing his throat. "Your Honor, we have security footage from a municipal camera 2 blocks from the incident, corroborated by timestamps and location data. In addition, we've received digital evidence, a photo posted to a now-deleted group chat originally uploaded by the defendant Mason Briggs. We also have a torn blouse preserved and bagged-bearing DNA consistent with all 3 defendants." The courtroom fell silent again. Mason's hands were shaking visibly now. Brent's face was pale as chalk. Kyle looked like he wanted to vanish. Amanda nodded, once her gavel untouched now. She didn't need it anymore. Her presence carried more weight than wood and steel. "Play the video," she instructed. On screen, the footage rolled Amanda walking calmly down the alley. Then the figures appeared, shadows emerging. The assault played out clearly: the verbal harassment, the shove, the ripping of her blouse. The laughter, Amanda backing away, shirt torn, clutching the fabric across her chest. The gallery gasped. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. A journalist near the back instinctively stopped typing and just watched. Then came the silence after the clip ended. No one breathed. Amanda inhaled slowly. To the court and the public, this is not about power. It is not about position. It is about dignity. Mine, yours. Every woman who has ever been cornered, laughed at, or stripped of her clothing or her voice. She leaned forward ever so slightly. These 3 defendants didn't know I was a judge. They thought I was vulnerable, disposable. They were wrong. Her voice lowered like a cold wind. They violated my body and my rights. They violated the basic decency that should govern every citizen. They laughed while doing it, but now they'll listen. She turned to the bailiffs. "Escort the defendants to the holding chamber for formal arraignment and trial scheduling." Mason stood unsteady. "Wait, Your Honor. Please, can I just—" "You may remain silent," Amanda cut in without raising her voice. "In fact, I encourage it." Brent broke. "We didn't know who you were." Amanda stood. She removed her robe, slowly revealing a scar along her collarbone, the exact tear where they had ripped her shirt. She wore it like a badge, not a wound. "That was your first mistake," she said softly, "but not your last." The bailiffs moved in. The defendants didn't resist. Outside, cameras waited. Inside, the air hung thick with a new emotion: respect. Not just for a judge, but for a woman who refused to be broken, who turned shame into power. The gavel finally fell once more. Court adjourned. The metallic clink of handcuffs echoed down the hall as the 3 boys were led out of the courtroom. Their eyes, once defiant, were now dull and sunken. Each step they took sounded like a surrender. Judge Amanda Hale stood alone for a moment, her robe draped over her arm, the scar on her collarbone catching a beam of light from the courtroom skylight. She turned toward the remaining attendees, many of whom had not moved since the gavel last fell. No one looked away. Some faces were tearful, others stunned. Most were silent. But every single one of them had just witnessed something they'd never forget, not because a powerful judge had sought revenge, but because a woman had stood tall after being stripped down and had used her voice to strike back harder than any fist ever could. In the press gallery, reporters whispered frantically, "That's her, the one from the video." She never even raised her voice. Amanda returned to her chambers, her assistant following closely. "Ma'am," the assistant said gently, "do you want a moment alone?" Amanda paused at her office door, then nodded. Just one. Inside, she locked the door, walked to her desk, and slowly sat down. She exhaled deeply, the weight of it all finally hitting her. Not pain release. She hadn't cried when it happened. She hadn't cried during the arrest. She hadn't cried in court. But now, alone, a single tear slipped from her eye. Not of sadness, not of fear. It was pride. She opened a drawer and removed the photo, one of the original images taken by the boys and recovered by investigators. Her blouse-torn face mid-motion vulnerable, but defiant. She looked at that image and whispered, "You thought you'd ruin me, but you created something stronger." A knock came at the door. It was the assistant again. "Ma'am, Channel 9 is asking for a comment." Amanda straightened, placed the photo back in the drawer, and wiped her face. "Tell them this," she said. "The law belongs to everyone, and no one, no matter how powerful, how loud, or how arrogant, is above the consequences of violating another's dignity." The assistant nodded and left. The city would talk about this case for weeks. But it wouldn't just be about the scandal or the courtroom drama. It would be about how a woman turned her trauma into triumph, not by vengeance, but by justice. The boys would face sentencing in due time, but their punishment had already begun. It started the moment they saw her walk into that courtroom. Because some consequences don't need a prison. Sometimes, the weight of public shame, the shattering of arrogance, and the knowledge that they had tried to destroy a pillar of justice that was the sentence. Amanda turned back to her window, watching the city bustle below. She knew others were still out there. Others like those boys, still laughing, still violating, still assuming they'd never face consequences. But today that assumption died, and she would make sure it stayed that way. This story isn't just about courtroom justice. It's about the unbreakable spirit of those who are wronged, but refuse to be reduced to victims. Judge Amanda Hale turned humiliation into strength, not through rage, but through unwavering resolve and the power of truth. Her silence that night wasn't weakness, it was calculation. Her calm in court wasn't detachment, it was control. The lesson is clear: never mistake someone's dignity for vulnerability, and never assume that power only shows itself in loud voices or physical force. True strength often appears in silence and restraint, in the courage to confront evil with grace. To anyone who has ever been mocked, violated, or underestimated, this is your reminder: you are not powerless. And to those who bully, harass, or humiliate, understand this: your moment of laughter can quickly become the moment the world sees who you really are. Justice may come quietly, but it never forgets.